welcome to my art channel, and today as I finish this demonstration painting off, you can sit back and watch as we talk about two very important things to do with art and creating strong paintings. The first one is building foundations and how I go about that when I build up for a painting. And the second one is a tricky one, that's when to know when to stop. So for everyone it's different, but I will walk you through some of my thoughts on how I make that decision when enough is enough and to avoid overworking your paintings. As you watch me finishing off this piece, I will show you in real time some sections, and I have put the fast forward on for some of it, the time lapse. So you'll be able to see it to completion from this stage, but sped right up to a large degree. So for those who are here for the first time, my name is Kayleen West. I'm a Melbourne-based artist and I work in many different mediums, but pastel and oil are my favourites. I've been working particularly in pastel over the past 12 months, but I also use other mediums to work up to a painting as well, to do fundamentals and building blocks, if you like, before I create some of my works. Now I do work impromptu outdoors in doing plein air, so I frequently go outside, which helps a lot with indoor studio work like I'm doing here today. And it certainly helps when you're a demonstrator or a teacher. It builds speed and confidence and takes a lot of pressure off when you have that knowledge and that experience behind you. So I would highly recommend, if you can get outside, if you're a landscape painter or you like doing landscape inside, to get outside and really observe what goes on in natural light and in a natural environment, as the camera can be a bit of a lie and can distort things and cheat you out of some details. So I highly recommend that initially as a preliminary exercise or practice to build up from if you're doing landscapes. So this painting here was a demonstration for the Pastel Society of Victoria, Australia, that I did about a week ago, and it was very difficult to stop painting. Actually, you're given a very short period of time to build something, and a demonstration isn't necessarily just about me painting. It's about imparting as much information as I can to that group of people while I'm there. So there was a lot of other things that I shared before I even put pastel to paper, but once I did, it was a very easy thing for me to do compared to if I had just launched into a painting of some photographs, because I did some preliminary work which you can see in this video right now. You'll see me holding up a piece of paper. Now that is just a notebook that I have sketched down a stronger composition. So you'll see that I've got a color study to the left hand side, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I felt when I looked at the color study it was lovely and the composition was just fine, but I wanted to slow down the viewer so that they had a longer journey in the painting. So therefore, changing the composition, putting the house up higher and having the viewer walk up to the house more slowly made for a more interesting journey and experience for the viewer. So you may have noticed artists putting paths in their paintings to lead the eye to the focal point. And in a way I have done this, but I've deliberately obstructed the path and not made it a clean path, or just a suggestion of a path. And I've used the mark making to slow down the viewer to experience the journey of walking up through there a lot more slowly than you would if it was a very clean, open path. By having foliage and suggestion of grasses that have not been cut nice and clean, that are all wispy in the foreground, the view is almost like walking up to the home or the house, but you would feel the grasses against your legs or against your feet, as you walk through there. There would be a sensory experience in real life as you walked up through there. So visually, it's the artist's responsibility or challenge to help the viewer experience what they're trying to illustrate. And that's what I wanted to happen. I wanted to keep the viewer in the painting a lot longer. It's got beautiful colours and marks and things to discover, but the actual composition and the way I lay down those marks can make a big difference to that experience too. So you'll see on the left hand side the study that was done first, which again I will talk about that soon. That is very different mark making in the front. It's very horizontal compared to what I've done. I've got a bigger space on the final piece, and the mark making points upwards towards the building, and it doesn't block like a horizontal line would block. We've got that horizontal line of the fence up near the house, but I wanted the light up through the painting, through the center of the painting, all the way into the building, onto that roof where that really strong red pink color is, into the sky. I didn't want the viewer blocked from going up there, but I didn't want them moving too fast. And going back to the horizontal line, there's one thing that I am very conscious of in a painting, and in this particular one there is some strong horizontal lines in it that could block the viewer from traveling. So what I do is they're in there, but they're broken. So if you look very closely, you'll see that there's no straight line that goes all across the top of any of the roofs, and the fence is broken up, even the line where the grasses finish, it's all broken lines so that there's no hard stopping signs for the viewer. Now let's talk about that colour study. So I'll tell you the story behind the colour study and how that was developed, and then we'll talk briefly about when to stop the painting, because this was a very big thing with it is with me, with my paintings. I don't like to overdo them, and sometimes I do, and I actually ruined a wonderful painting that I did recently, and it exists no more because I end up washing it off. So I was going to avoid that with this, that's for sure. So back to the study. So you'll see in the study here, the colours are very similar to what I'm using in the pastel, but it wasn't done in pastel. It was actually done with 3 acrylic colours. So I used raw umber. I'm just trying to think what the colours were. Raw umber, quinacridone purple, and alizarin. So it was a permanent alizarin, I think. So there was 3 colours used. How this developed was interesting because I was having trouble painting. I was having trouble getting my mojo on in the studio. I had recently redone my studio. I put new flooring in and changed everything around. It took a little bit to nest, so we're a bit sensitive, or we can be very sensitive artists. I certainly am, and it took me a little while to get into the swing of painting in my studio. So I was just trying to get into it, so I decided just to do some colour exercises, just pull out 3 colours, start playing with them, which is something I do like to do now and then, just pull out a very, very limited palette and see what it could make. So I started doing coloured swatches in the same exercise book that I've got the sketch in, and loved the colours. Like the colours these 3 colours made were really lovely, and I thought they'd be actually very perfect for portraiture. But because I was preparing for this demonstration, I thought I might just try them and do a little colour study of the photographs I was using for this demonstration. Now the demonstration was actually on a different subject, which we're not talking about today. It was on how to paint shadows and discovering the mysteries of shadows and how to deal with them. So that is the reason I picked that building out, because it had lovely interesting shadows, and I was able to talk about the colours I use and things to do with the shadows, as well as demonstrate on some other things. So that's what I did. I used those three colours to play around with a very simplified version of the final painting in acrylic. Now I was delighted with the outcome. When I finished this little study, I just loved it. I really think it holds its own even as a painting. So I decided to take that and turn it into a pastel piece. So that's why that is sitting to the side. I mostly worked using that to create the final painting for the demonstration. So I was able to move very fast in the demonstration and lay down the foundation, lay down the colors. I knew, like, a lot of it was already pre-planned. I'd already discovered what I was doing to a large degree by doing the study first. And this is how I teach too. When I do a workshop, or in any classes, that where you get a bit more time, I step people through the different ways you can build up a painting so that you get a stronger outcome. And I know, I can confidently say that I don't think I would have the result that I have on this bigger piece had I not done that. In fact, I know that for certain. So I really like that palette. I'm very conscious of not sticking to the same colours all the time. I think that can become very boring and safe. And I'm glad, because these three colours that I did, were bold. It was a bold palette. But those pinks in there with the purples and that, it's just gorgeous. So I was really, really, really enjoyed creating this piece. But it went down fast. I had a lot of fun with everyone at the demonstration. There was a lot of laughs. We had a really good time, and I was able to really think very clearly because of that breakdown. So when I got back to my studio with it, I knew I had a strong painting, and I knew there was some beautiful strong marks in there that appealed to me, and I didn't want to lose that, but I knew that I wanted to build up from that. So the scary part was, when do I stop? How much do I do? What decisions do I make from here in? So it was really good to have the studio time to switch off and not be talking to anyone. I did have some things in the background I was listening to as I was doing this, but basically I was able to just really sit and go make those decisions for myself. What do I keep? And work each area as I went, and think about how it was progressing more slowly than it is with a demonstration. So that's what I did. Now, knowing when to stop is tricky. I think you have to decide at the start what you want to achieve out of your painting. That's the first thing. When you launch into a painting, it's usually an idea that pulls you in. You like the light on the tree, you like the colour in that vase, or whatever. There's a certain extra special thing that you like about that. You've got to keep that in the forefront of your mind when you see things evolving in your painting. You've got to make those decisions, what parts of your painting you like and why, and then you've got to land that plane. The biggest thing for me is I love a painting to feel like a painting. I want to walk the viewer through my painting as if they had painted it. So I like them to see what has been done. So having those strokes there, somebody who can't paint gets to enjoy painting because they get to see the marks and how they were laid to a certain degree. There's mystery in it in the painting, but there's not exclusion. It includes somebody into the journey of every single stroke. They're able to feel what went down, they're able to see the stroke, know it's a painting, and enjoy that. So that's very important in my work, to see that. So as I laid it down, I was very careful not to be blending too much, not to be running tones or colours into each other too much. And when something looks that way, I would break it up again, but I would still step back and think how best to break it up. I did have to keep referring to my sketch and to the colour sketch and to the photos, but I actually didn't use the photos a lot, to be honest. It was more the sketch, the black and white sketch, that I had to keep referring to, because that simplified. It broke down the painting to pretty much 3 values, and I had to remember where my shadows were. I kept losing the shadows as I was doing it. I had to keep putting them back in, and remember my thinking when I did that sketch. So as I said, it's your decisions that you make. You're the storyteller in your artwork, and so it's just important to be conscious of your story so that you can tell it clearly. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was of help to you when you're thinking about your own paintings, or if you just enjoy watching an artist and listening to an artist chat about all the thinking that goes behind a painting. There is a lot, and there's certainly a lot for me anyway. I hope you enjoyed that, and the painting that I finished. And as with all my paintings, pretty much, they are usually available until they're not, and so feel free to reach out if you see anything. But otherwise, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you got to journey through part of this painting, and I hope to see you next time. God bless, and I'll see you later.